Welcome to another moment, an excited moment where we redefine standard. And when we talk about redefining standard, it's the ability to evaluate the standard with which we operate. Organizations have what they call the operating standard, operating manual. Like you know that when you buy an equipment, the standard of operation with which you operate that equipment. And usually, have you noticed that when you buy an advance of that same equipment, there's a slight operational difference. And it means that you can't operate that equipment from the same standard. I mean, if you have a coffee maker and the same brand and the same quality, the same brand, but differs in maybe in frequency or something, you realize that the operational standards are quite different. It is something that if you buy a vehicle, this year model, another model, if you're not careful, you realize that there are modifications, there are alterations, there are an enhancement with which the standard carries. And that's why they upgrade it. If you have a phone, naturally you realize that there's a new standard that is required to operate that. So as a human being, we can't continue to run from the old standard. And that's why when this corner is for us to challenge, to inspire us, to instigate us, to motivate us, a point where we periodically look at our operating standard. And for instance, am I reactive in nature or am I responding? Do I respond from my core values, from my core essence? Do I respond from divinity? Or am I historically or experientially or cross-referentially infused or influenced in my response? So here, when we say we challenge status quo, we want to be able to see that you cannot aspire or desire an upgraded life or upgraded manifestation without first and foremost look at, define the standard of operation. If you use the old standard of operation, you will find out that you're going to have a conflict with the new. It's more like you have a trend and a certain trend and a certain fashion, and you are using a certain idea to wear it. You realize that you are in conflict. So when we say we are redefining standard, that means that periodically check your standard of operation, standard of relationship, standard of your duty, standard of finance, the standard of association. Those are things that we need to be able to challenge. Then we say we challenge status quo. In the day and now, let's think about it that all that you do is to receive. You are more interested with what you are receiving. And you don't sit down to think about how can I place myself to the place where I'm getting. Just this variation of thought, this change in point of view, or concept, ideas, you will see that you become a totally a different person. So it means that we don't become what we receive. We become what we give. We don't become what we receive. We become what we give. And if we constantly do not challenge status quo, why am I doing what I'm doing? How do I see my office? How do I see my marriage? How do I see my parenting? So it means that you have to constantly move. I'm an advocate that your better self is never in the past, but in front. Because, of course, I read from the good book, he said, a righteous man, a good man, they shine brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. So it means that if you are in a state that seemingly recycle you at any moment, you are in a permanent state. And what this end is to challenge you from that cycle, from that status quo, from that sameness, to move you beyond. And I can assure you, you can move beyond where you are. Inherently, we have been built, we have been forged. The way we are constructed is that we have to advance, we have to grow, we have to evolve, we have to mature, we have to increase, we have to expand. Here we invite you to goodness. There's a lower life and there's a higher life. There's a lower life, there's a higher life. To access higher life, there are certain modification in your mind structure, in your emotional engagement, in your belief system, in how you see, in your methodology, even in your character disposition. And I've said times without number, really, you cannot access higher life with the same poor character. You cannot access higher life because higher life requires a set of new character. It is the formation of those new character that will access you to higher life. I mean, higher life is becoming a good person, a better person. Whatever that good means or implied means that you are in a higher state, in a higher seat, in a elevated seat. Everybody requires elevation. But ladies and gentlemen, not everybody will access or even maintain it. Even when you have accessed it, you can't maintain it because it requires a set of, first of all, your identity. If your identity, for instance, let's look for instance, a good tree will increase in good. A bad tree will increase in bad. So first, fundamental, you can't cross from bad tree and you expect to produce good tree. I know some people can be in good tree and still, because they have allowed their nature to be transformed, to be modified by external realities, now they can produce not after their kind. So what we're saying is, ladies and gentlemen, in this corner, three things are important to us. We redefine standard, we challenge status quo, and we invite people into higher life of goodness. And in this higher plane, in this level, in this frequency, we vibrate differently. And our energy is quite differently. And so if you have taken time to follow us, these are the three things that drive this corner. We don't want to be the same person. We don't want to react the same way. We don't want to see the same way. We don't want to have the same perception. We need to be elevated into a higher self, into a higher consciousness, into a higher value. And so today, we're in our journey of preoccupation. We have dealt with a whole lot. But I'm going to be asking a few questions. Why do you think that you judge things? Have you ever pondered and taken time to say, why do I judge people when I see them? People that I have not known. Why do I judge food even before I eat the food? Why do I judge a car even when I have not accessed it? How do I judge a hotel? Why do I judge the other person? Have you wondered, why am I always angry at a certain event when things happened? Have you asked yourself, why are you irritated when things do not align to your preferences or to your assumptions? Why do you think people hate you? Why do you think people reject you? Why do you think you are disappointed? Let's even anchor on that. Why do you think you're disappointed? Why do you think that people didn't treat you nicely? Why do you use the word that people should have known better? Why do you think that economy is bad? Now, these questions, the more we ponder them, it begins to unlock certain dimension that we are, one way or the other, including me, preoccupied. And preoccupation is something we really need to dig deeper to understand, because your irritation, your fears, your angered life, your depression, your dissatisfaction, and all these representations of that do not align to our preferences is as a result of preoccupation. One of the things that I found out that is very difficult to live in emptiness. It's very difficult to live in emptiness. Can you wake up any day and say that I'm empty? Can you wake up any day and say that I'm nothing? I know people will wonder, why are you talking like this? How can I wake up and say I'm nothing? We're going to be delving into two things, and three things really that will help us to talk about preoccupation. Number one will be title. Number two will be identification. Number three will be labels. We're going to be delving in the preoccupation of, number one, titles. Number two will be identifications. Number three will be labels. I have dealt with what I call formlessness. And it was a richer concept. I mean, if you have strong dislike about something, why do you think you have strong dislike about people that you have never met before, but once you see them, as soon as you see them, you have it may not be intuitively influenced. It could just be your preoccupation of your experiences in the past. Why I delve into topics that are unusual is because I want to know, I desire and aspire to consciously be free in life. And I realize that we are not free. And how you know that you're not free? You know that when you are emotionally entrapped by something happened to you and you have a strong dislike over that, it retained in your memory bank. Another similarity had not something like it appeared. You're going to judge it or define it or perceive it from the usual, the old thing. It's difficult, even though they may be similar, but their influence or what created it may be different. You do not have capacity at that moment to see it with a fresh eye. You're likely going to see it from the old eye. When I read his mercies are new every day, I will begin to ponder, what is mercy? Mercy means let go. Mercy means release. Mercy means empty. Mercy means that I'm not that past. Mercy means that I am not that experienced. Mercy means that I am not that old self. Mercy means that I am not that mystic. Mercy means that I'm not that failure. Mercy means that I am not that rejection. Mercy means that I am not that one that failed the exams. Mercy means that I'm not that person they tagged. Meaning, it is no longer existing, but I am calling it forth through what has occupied my memory. And I'm living a life now from the past. And honestly, I believe that we live life not from now, but from the past. So we're in prison of the past. And it's loaded. It's an extra load when we have to compound yesterdays, yesterweek, and leave them in the now. Incidentally, I stumbled into a very powerful scripture that said, "He that repeats a matter separate friends." And I can tell you, separation, especially, when people separate themselves from event, that separation is caused by certain previous experiences that is not happening now, but we're engaging in the now. Patrick, why is this so important? Because I feel we're imprisoned by the past. I told my friend today, how do you see your kitchen? Now, if you visit your friend and you had encounter, if you come to your kitchen and say, "Hey, my kitchen is substandard," what happened is that the memory of the way you visited has now imprisoned you now. So you come down to this kitchen that had been a lovely place, that had been a place of comfort. Now you are judging it from that experience. And now, if it doesn't inspire you for improvement, but create worry, you see, now you are in prison of what you are preoccupied. It's more like you had been enjoying a certain privilege, and you now heard about another people, what is being done to them. Up to that moment, you were enjoying what you have, but just seeing that the other people have what you perceive better, you start judging what you have, and you lose the appreciation, and you begin to devalue what you have because of certain experience that you've encountered. I mean, I can go on and go on to find a rhythm to explain how preoccupation is a prison yard. Because, first of all, it devalues who we are. You are not who you think you are. Frankly, that's why we're going to talk about this title. Now, title is such a preoccupation. Have you seen people that you've given a title? I mean, I'm like that sometimes. When people call me Mr. Patrick, I say, "Don't you know that I'm Dr. Patrick?" If you get preoccupied by title, in whatever format, the question will be, when you are alone, how does that title resonate with you? I shared this example. We had a tattoo chief who would travel to a certain country, and he was so encumbered by the reference of his title. And in this new country that we traveled, nobody knows him because his title is insignificant. His title was only in a location. And so when we had got in there, there was a requirement for us to pass through the immigration. And part of the requirement that you're going to strip yourself, almost strip yourself naked, and you got to remove all that. And this guy was a red title chief. And I said, well, I can't do this because you know why? I'm already preoccupied by this red cap. So red cap has preoccupied him. And it means that he can't be seen removing that red cap because he feels like I'm submitting to authority. Meanwhile, this authority is not within your locality. I think he realized that they were about to deport him. Is at that moment, he knows that there are higher authority that you have to respect. And this is the problem I have with people who have a title and they get into a space. They are so preoccupied by the littleness of that title that they think it has become a universal title. And so they use it as an instrument of negotiation. Don't you know who I am? I don't know who you are, sir. They are so preoccupied with title that if you give them a seat that does not equal to that title, they can't sit. You know how you visit your friend and you are somehow like a managing director, and we respect that, who have a certain influence in a certain territorial area, governing certain people. You become so conscious and loaded by that the fact that you're managing director, so you visit another company. You are coming in the title of that managing director to another place that you have another managing director. So simply, the security man has protocols. And in that protocol means require that your name must be submitted by the managing director who is inviting you for a meeting. And unfortunately, due to the busyness of the managing director, could not, send your name. And there has been an instruction given to the security guy to say, you must pass. This is the process of entering this facility. Of course, you need to be cleared by the gate. He said, do you know who I am? What is preoccupying you at that moment is that you have forgotten that you are only a managing director in a space, not in the entire space. So being occupied by this title will bring foolishness to you. The fact that you are a husband does not mean in your office that all the single girls will be now husband man, treat you as husband man. No, you are their colleague and not husband. You know how men, okay, treat me like I'm a husband. I don't know. You are my colleague. I respect you as a man, as a humanity. I will not dignify you. Now, the fact that you have finished eating your food that I did not enjoy does not entitle you to tell me, because a husbandman, because I'm a cleaner, to now act from that title to command respect. Doesn't work. You're preoccupied by that. And it's we act out of foolishness when we are preoccupied. And that's why we are disappointed. And that's why we're infuriated. That's why you see there's a disappointment. In fact, every time you are disappointed, the reason why you're disappointed is that you have been preoccupied by a certain concept, a certain idea, a certain preferences. You are biased because you want to bring certain title in the now. Sorry. So, Patrick, how do I do it? I strip myself from every title. I mean, I am also in a certain class of managing director. Managing director is a protocol for order, not who you are. It is not your true self. It's not your true self. And that's why people are titled in their office. They bring the title in their houses. Or they go to a supermarket because other people have to realize that you are this person. We don't know. One day I visited my mom. And when I visited my mom, and I didn't like the state with which her house was because she has traveled. And I'm a managing director in my organization. Not even organizations. And yes, I'm a managing director, but I have another title. I have a title as a son. And these titles are not to preoccupy us, to influence our decision, but they are meant for function, to define our function. They are for functionality, not for possession. Something that will possess us to dictate how we behave, how we act. No. And that's where in organization, have you noticed that I am the accountant? And so we have to cow because you are the accountant. And will you also be accountant as a wife? Oh, I'm the chief accountant in my organization. I know the financial. I am financially prudent. I know. And you are bringing your title in a relationship that there's supposed to be deeper understanding, and unconsciously these things begin to influences and affect our relationship because title has preoccupied who we are. Have you noticed that for some people who are in church, who has held a certain title in a department, now when for some reasons there's a restructure or reorganization or reappointment, because they are titled before, they won't submit to the governing. They will rather to move to another department. Why? They have been not stripped, of course, chained. Before then, they were serving, but they cannot serve again. Why? They are title conscious. Title has preoccupied who they have and have now redefining, become the source of decision, become the source of how they should be related. How did you get in here? I mean, I can come to where men is. Men will tell you, I'm a man. Now let me come to their house now. I'm a man. So as a man, I can't sweep the house. How did he get into that role? How did we get into title consciousness where title dictates? Preoccupation is a slave master. It doesn't give you freedom to be who you are. You know, there are people who, because of their position, they like a certain food, but because of their title, they can never enjoy that food because they can't be seen in that title consciousness to eat a particular food. They are now imprisoned by the title. How? I heard some people said, hey, I cannot take taxi or a cab. Not me. Because they cannot be seen in a cab, in a taxi, because of the title. But when they leave a certain location, I mean, recently I traveled and I met this gentleman who was a cab driver in another country. And I mean, the car he came with, I was even shocked. And in doing a conversation, usually just get to know who that person is and all that. He said, hey, I come in here to do my cab work. When I finish 6 months, I go back to my country and the managing director. And I mean, I was really humbled. This guy, astute guy, clean guy, the texture of his skin, you will just know. You see, that's what we're talking about. Ability to have what we call beginner's mind, where we have radiant curiosity, radiant intelligence, where you are flexible. You cannot be one thing and overrule you. I can be a head and yet function as subject. And that's what happened. Positional title, you see people in a positional title, they will never respect another person because they feel that, oh, I'm a titled person. Let's move forward. If you have any question, you can contribute. Are you in any way preoccupied by title in any form? There's also the other part of title where people have given you a certain title. They give you title to defraud you. They can give you a title of a good man. And now in retaining the good man status, you will become foolish and become gullible to them. You become men pleasers because, how can they see you? And it's also about boyfriend. You know how you will talk about man friend. And if they want to kill you, they will give you a certain title. You'll begin to respond to that title. I mean, you know how in an organization, there's a guy who is a very great guy, and everything they want to do is say, hey, have you got called the guy? They will give you a title in the office. It is time to challenge that title. How does that title influences your decision and perception of how you see yourself and how you interact and relate to situations on a day-to-day basis? You know, sometimes they give us a title in the workplace and we respond after that title. We don't challenge yourself that, hey, no, this is not my title. This is a title for protocol, for organizational order, but not who I am. I am who I am. I am bigger. I cannot be quantified, nor measured by my title. No, I am bigger than your title and that title. Don't allow life to give you title. There are also people life has given title. Like I'm a beggar. You function from that beg. That's preoccupation. Sometimes they will tell us we are dependent or citizen of a nation or masses. Have you heard that one title, masses? You behave like a mass. You will remain like a mass in that because it's a title cloned to give you to subjection. Let's move on. Please, I'm begging all of you. Check it, challenge every title you have consciously, unconsciously allowed to preoccupy your mental. Release it. Become fluid in your title. I'm a son. And I took the son and I cleaned my mother's house. The second one is the preoccupation of identification. This is one factor, this is one preoccupation that is killing. What are you identifying? In fact, identity is what brings us into slavery. In fact, identity masters us. We don't take time to unlock ourselves, what we're identifying with. The one I don't even understand is that I have no man. I have no person to help me. I hear this a lot. I have used it. I have no man. That's an identification. And of course, we know the story about a man who spent 38 years in a sport, preoccupied that I have no one who can help me. The identity that you have allowed to preoccupy your mind and is affecting you. So today, let's challenge all the identities that you have that have preoccupied you. I'm the only one in this world. I have no helper. Now, there's a trending word, and I really don't understand the source of this trending word. Something like, be loyal to who is loyal to you. I think some of these things are from the deep of, I don't know who constructed, but I think it's an identification unconscious to us that we have identified to influences who we are. We don't challenge things. So we yoke ourselves by a trending word, neglecting spiritual principles, natural laws that govern the earth. And we say it we identify with the word, the trending word. They say this is the word. Who is that person who gave us that identity? And we are slaves to that. We identify with it. How? Papa said, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't misunderstand me. Where is the principle behind that saying that you are identifying? We copy a whole lot without thinking through those words. People get into a space that have a certain characteristics and culture. They identify and preoccupied by that culture, even though it is not in alignment to their true self. So they live in duality. So when they get in there, they are preoccupied by that character content that's prevalent in that space, the language that is people identify with a trend that they have no business identifying with. Or if you can't beat them, join them. That's preoccupation. Preoccupation of identification is something on a daily basis. You wake up and do an introspection and check, what did I identify? You can get into a space unconsciously, you have identified something and you acquire them, and they begin to remotely affect you. And now, if it's unconscious acquisition, you realize that when something is unconscious, they continue to sabotage your faith, they continue to sabotage your positive vibe, they continue to sabotage everything you do. Unknowing to you, you have identified because you've acquired it, meditated around it, repeat it after it, and it creates fear, it creates anxiety. The panic attack you have is as a function of identification. Some people are identifying some certain food, and now that food does not resonate with their health. Now, because of how they have identified with that food, and that's why they have formed a habit, so they become automatic person rather than a responsive person. Now, why we react is as a result of identification. And when things do not align to our perceived identification that had become, that we are preoccupied with, that's why disappointment, that's why sadness comes in. That's why we are discontented. That's why we are discouraged. When there's a discouragement, go and check it. The source of it is preoccupation. Some people identify with a certain class of people, and now they categorize themselves, we are this. And now they expect the world to conform to that identity. You just acquired it. It was acquired. Originally it wasn't there. Because you have just come into a space and now you have identified with a certain peculiarity and adopted it. It becomes your identity. Come on, it's killing you, it's load. Some people identify with a certain language. And in fact, that's another one. There's a certain language that you've identified with that is sabotaging your complete advancement. That is sabotaging your leadership. Now you acquire it and identify it. There's one thing I came across recently. He said, what is your contribution to this relationship? And people are running with that without looking at their value system, without cross-checking their divine regulatory orders. And yet they just got into that flow. That's what we're saying. That's part of what we're talking about. Identification, that you have no root, that has no significance to your purpose, to your value system, to your self-worth, to your embodiment, to what governs you, what have brought you so far. There are also people who have identified with a certain habit within you. You know that they are counterproductive. But because you have not consciously, mindfully, intentionally be able to challenge yourself with that identification and realize that it started someday You were not originally designed or constructed like this, but because of your exposure, unguided self, having no personal law, and so now you acquire those things through your senses, and you've identified with it. You know, there are certain people who have identified with certain friends, and those friends, their relevance has ended, but because of certain things they had done. I mean, I was a slave to this. Let me explain. So a particular gentle person has shown me favor in previous life, and I know that me and this person, honestly, our values and our thinking patterns differs each time we come in. Our frequency and vibration and energy are quite different. Yes, at some point there was a reason why we're in that space, but now I was preoccupied by what that person did for me, like a favor. Meanwhile, I have done 10,000 more favor to that person that would liberated me from that shackle. That person become a source of shame at some point in my life, because I refuse to understand that this person that I'm identifying with, the phase has ended, and you're there because you've identified with the favor. You know, pattern recognition and pattern realization will give you a utilization of certain models that, if you engage well, you can unlock yourself from every prison of identification. Oh, my boss was nice. He was always looking after my mother when she was ill. And you know that the demand of that your boss now is irrelevant. Now the identification of the favor has ensnared you. You see why preoccupation, we need to look into it very well. It cut across all of us. There are also people in an association. Right now, they identify with that association from childhood because of parental control. And they know that this association that we're identified with has preoccupied us and have now enslaved us. So our progression is distorted because we can't let go, we can't release. That's why you see, if you don't let the old go, if you don't release the old, the new can't find its way up. Let me also bring identification of hurts. There are hurt that you identify now. It happened 20 years ago. The person has even died. The person has jabbered. But you are still identifying with that hurt. And every day you live with that, you're occupied with that hurt. Even some of them, the person has even made restitution, has even apologized. But you see, this one, I can forgive, but I cannot forget. How relevant it is. Then let me talk about the identification of parents. You know, I read something recently, and I quickly check, is there any resentment I have with my parents? Whether they were dead or not, I would have just done restitution. They say, oh, my mother hurt me. I can't forgive it. Your child will not forgive you too. It's a law. Yeah. It's a law. I hope somebody is being helped. Labels. Identification of labels. Label limit us completely. If you check your life where you are, is preoccupied by labels. And labels is something that is not taught so well in several platforms. And they are the thing that imprisons us and distort our growth. I have labeled myself like I will never do well because of certain experiences. I live in that realm for a very long time until I'm redeemed from those labels. Great men don't live in labels. Labels snuff you out of your progressive self. Label is so destructive. And now, people say that there are positive labels. Until you mindfully engage labels as an instrument of decision making, instrument of discipline, instrument to create a bit of boundaries in a specific moment. Unfortunately, people utilize it. It becomes a slave to them. What are you labeling yourself? What are you constantly labeling yourself? When I got a concept about label and how destructive labels are, especially the unguided labels, you will realize that there was a lady called a woman of issue of blood. They didn't tell us about her name. They labeled them. You know when you talk about I am SS, is it SS they call it? I am. You label yourself. You are bigger than that identification. I'm not saying don't follow the medical rules, but you see, you can reconstruct your label and create a different label that you function in your imagination, the womb of your creation. People talk about label that I'm single and I'm this. Oh, I'm unemployed. Huh? And you said, oh, I'm unemployed. So you label yourself and you function from labels. They limit you completely. In fact, our limitation is rooted in the preoccupation of labels. I don't know the label that I've given to you by doctors, by scientists, by anybody. You got to question it. The question that says, whose report shall we believe? Whose label should we believe? Who gave you that label? Parents? From childhood, there are people who their parent gave a label and they are functioning in that space and it has belittled them. Or your boss walked in consistently and giving you a label, and now you have unconsciously returned it and it preoccupied your mind, and you have gone to another office. That same label is ringing in your head. That voice is still within your voice and is controlling where you are currently. That's preoccupation of labels. How do we come out of this? Freedom. Freedom is nothingness. And I like the way Matthew said it. Blessed are they meek, for they shall inherit. You see, when you occupy, you don't inherit. You are loaded, you are disadvantaged. But when you are not clinging to titles, no identification, no labels, you will realize that you can be anything anywhere in the world, without resentment, without disappointment. Every time you are disappointed, go and check these three keys: label, identification, and title. They are what will limit you from advancing, from maturing, from the freedom that you to find liberty to become spacious. I'm inviting you to live a life of spaciousness. That's a creative place, a place of nothingness, where you are not labeled. You acquire your label for functionality. You acquire your identity for functionality and discipline. You acquire your title for functionality and for duty. And that's when you become conscious and mindful of who you are. You are above this identification. You are above title. And you are above labels. We continue to challenge status quo and redefine standard and bring you into the freedom of goodness. Because in goodness, we have cheerfulness, we have excitement, we have the liberty of the soul, we have the harmony of the soul, and we have the honor of who we are. And we are super happy because you know what? Our landmark is that we dwell in goodness and we do life, and life doesn't do us. I'm grateful having this 1 hour. If you have any comment, please follow us. Share this link to anybody who you think is not progressive, is not maturing, is evolving in a cycle. It could just be, it is title, it is identification or labels that is affecting them. Thank you so much. Follow us. We're dealing with a whole lot of concept on radio. We're still continuing this series. If you join us tomorrow on Saturday, every Saturday, we are there. Please check us always. We have resources that will help you live a free life, have mental clarity, come into collaborative with the life forces, have a great energy that will help you to build a strong momentum and to live life in freedom. Dwell in goodness. And see you next time.